I am a sleep talker. I have been since I was a child. I have been told that I have crisp, clear diction, even when speaking nonsense. As a teenager, I experienced mild anxiety at lock-ins and sleepovers, worrying over what I might reveal in my sleep that I didn't want to say. When I was 20, my roommate, Xue Li, approached me about what I had revealed the night before. The night before, I had gone to bed first, and she remained at her desk studying. Sometime into her study, she heard me say, 我说中文说得不好. She turned to me and said, your Chinese is just fine. When I didn't respond or move, she realized at that moment I was asleep. What had changed about our nighttime rituals is that my language in my sleep had changed from English to Chinese, and this was the first time she could understand me. As she said this, I thought about the slow, sometimes dull, language learning of the past several years. The mounds of flashcards, the hours of recordings, the weeks of conversation partners making mistakes over and over again until I could get it right. That and the months of living in a country that was different than my own had changed me in unexpected ways. It had changed how I dreamed. Today's gospel in Luke picks up where we left off last week, right after the blessings and the woes, also known as the Beatitudes. It is the middle chunk of what is commonly referred to as the Sermon on the Plain. And for me, it's important to back up in this sacred story, or the gospel passage just sounds like a drone of rules. Before the Sermon on the Plain, Jesus climbed a mountain with his closest disciples. He named them apostles, 12 people who would be close to him for his whole ministry. When he and his apostles come down the mountain, people flock to him from all over for healing. They try to touch him. They pray for his mercy. The scene is chaotic, and as I imagine it, hopeful, twinged with a little bit of desperation. Jesus intentionally chooses that spot, a plain, a level land to give this sermon. In Matthew's gospel, Jesus gives a similar sermon from a mountain. Luke's gospel is saying clearly that these words are for everyone. We are all on the same level. These words are for those at the time, and these words are for us. Jesus is inviting those listening into a new imagination of how the world can be. Let me teach you how to dream about what God's love and mercy looks like here and now. What God's love and mercy looks like in your community. What God's love and mercy looks like in your life. Jesus' words were shocking, uncomfortable, and countercultural for the original hearers, and they are for us today. Words like do not retaliate, find subversive ways, sometimes humorous ways to respond. Love and pray for our enemies. Not just, God, please make my enemy more like me, but may my enemy feel your love within their core. Give without expectation. Lend without expectation. And this is all after saying that those who are struggling are blessed, and woe to those who have much. Now, the pragmatic voice inside of me wants to say impossible. It's never going to happen. Jesus' words today are hard, and they point to something I believe all of us long for. Relationships that not only cross boundaries, but destroy those boundaries. Relationship that plant deep roots in God's love and mercy. To be clear, Jesus' words today are not encouraging that anyone stays in situations of abuse. Jesus' words are set in a message of love that knows no boundaries. They are set in a message that upholds the dignity of every human being. One of the reasons why I follow Jesus is because I see and feel that holy love. A love that draws no boundaries and draws us all in. That part of me responds to this gospel passage with hope and prayer. How, Jesus? Teach me how. What you say is hard and I'm tired. I know the brokenness in how things are now. I know the brokenness in my life and where I fall short. Forgive me. Teach me how to hope in your words. Teach me how to live in your world. Teach me how to hope in a God who is merciful. Hope in a God among us who preaches to all people. Hope in a God who calls us into a new way of being. Teach me to dream in a new way, Jesus. Someday, prayers and hope are my only response to this gospel passage. And some days I hear answers to my prayers through other people. One of those moments was this past year. I was a part of a clergy group led by the Reverend Dr. Fatima Saleh. She gathered us in order to help us see clearer where racism impacts our communities and our lives, and how we can better live and learn and love and break down those systems. What I took away from our year together most of all is what she modeled to our group every month. Find a small community of followers that will love you and will be your companion on the way. Followers that will say, "Are you sure that is a loving action?" Followers that will ask, "Are you praying for those who truly drive you crazy?" Companions who will say, "Have you considered," or call you flat out in your actions with love. She said that together, this experience is like learning a language, a place where you can make mistakes again and again so that you can better live into God's kingdom. That may look like a faith community, like those of us gathered within our own. That may look like a small group that you've signed up for, or a conversation partner. That may look like a couple of people you invite into a monthly conversation, or your family around the dinner table with particular questions. There are so many ways that we can walk faithfully together. And in today's passage, I hear, start here. We may never reach God's dream in our lifetime. With prayer, with others who remind us of God's love and call us back when we stray, and with God's grace and mercy, we will see where God is already moving here and now. Taking small, sometimes boring steps will change your dreams in unexpected ways. Imagine living in a world where we don't fear gun violence. Imagine a community where generosity, love, and mercy are core values. Imagine living in neighborhoods where we don't see only ourselves reflected back in our neighbors. We see the beautiful diversity of God's dream. Imagine living where we all are blessed. Imagine. When we glimpse these things, if even for a moment, we see glimpses of God's love. Will you dream with me this week?